Choreb Beruach, Sword of the Spirit. Interpreted and narrated by Wendy. Shemot, Exodus, Chapter 3. And it came to pass during the process of time that the king of Mitzrayim died, and the descendants of Yeshareal sighed because of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry went up to Elohim because of the bondage. Then Elohim heard their groaning. Moreover, Elohim remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Yitzhak, and with Jacob. And Elohim looked upon the children of Yeshareal, and Elohim knew. Now Moshe kept the flock of Yitro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the wilderness. Then he came to the mountain of Elohim, unto Horeb. Furthermore, the angel of Yahweh appeared to him in the flame of a fire out of the midst of a bush. Then he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, but the bush was not consumed. So Moshe said, Now I will turn aside and see this great sight. Why is the bush not burning? And when Yahweh saw that he turned aside to see, Elohim called out to him from the midst of the bush, and said, Moshe, Moshe. And he answered, Here I am. Then he said, Do not approach near here. Take your shoes from off your feet, for the place on which you stand is holy Adama. Moreover, he said, I am the Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzhak, and the Elohim of Jacob. Then Moshe hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon Elohim. And Yahuwah said, Surely I have seen the affliction of my people, who are in Mitzrayim, and I have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. Therefore I am coming down to deliver them out of the hand of the Mitzrayim, and to bring them up out of that land, to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaani, and the Hitti, and the Amori, and the Perizi, and the Hiwi, and the Yebusi. Alas, behold, the cry of the children of Yeshareal has come to me. Also, I have seen the oppression in which the Mitzrayim oppress them. Therefore, come, and I will send you unto Paro, that you may bring forth my people, the descendants of Yeshareal, out of Mitzrayim. However, Moshe asked of Elohim, Who am I, that I should go to Paro, and that I should bring forth the children of Yeshareal out of Mitzrayim? Then he answered, Surely I will be with you, and this will be a sign for you, that I have sent you. When you have brought forth the people out of Mitzrayim, you will serve Elohim upon this mount. Then Moshe said to Elohim, Behold, if I come to the children of Yeshareal and say to them, The Elohim of your fathers has sent me to you, then they will ask of me, What is his name? What should I say to them? Therefore Elohim answered Moshe, I am who I am. Moreover, he said, Thus you will say to the children of Yeshareal, Aya, I am, has sent me to you. Furthermore, Elohim said to Moshe, Thus you will say to the children of Yeshareal, Yahweh, he exists, Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzhak, and the Elohim of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial to all generations. Go and gather the elders of Yeshariel together. Then you will say to them, Yehovah, the Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, of Yitzhak, and of Jacob appeared to me, saying, Surely I have visited you, and that which is done to you in Mitzrayim. Therefore I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Mitzrayim to the land of the Canaani, and the Hitti, and the Amori, and the Perizi, and the Hiwi, and the Yebusi, to a land flowing with milk and honey. And they will hearken to your voice. Also, you and the elders of Yeshariel will go to the king of Mitzrayim. Then you will say to him, Yehovah, Elohim of the Abiram, has met with us. Now let us go, we beseech you, 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice unto Yehovah, our Elohim. But I am sure that the king of Mitzrayim will not let you go, no, not by a strong hand. Therefore I will stretch out my hand and strike the Mitzrayim with all my wonders, which I will do in the midst of it. Then, after that, he will let you go. Also, I will give this people favor in the sight of the Mitzrayim, and it will come to pass that when you go, you will not go empty. Then every woman will ask of her neighbor, and her who sojourns in her house, jewels of silver, and jewels of gold, and garments. And you will put them upon your sons and upon your daughters. Thus you will plunder the Mitzrayim. However, Moshe replied and said, But behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken to my voice. For they will say, Yehovah has not appeared to you. Therefore Yehovah asked of him, What is that in your hand? And he answered, A rod. Then he said, Cast it upon the ground. So he cast it upon the ground, and it became a serpent. Therefore Moshe fled from before it. Furthermore, Yehovah said to Moshe, Put forth your hand and take it by the tail. So he put forth his hand and caught it. Then it became a rod in his hand. This is for the purpose that they will believe us when we appear unto you. Yehovah, Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzhak, and the Elohim of Jacob. Moreover, Yehovah said to him, Now put your hand into your bosom. Therefore he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous like snow. Then he said, Put your hand into your bosom again. So he put his hand into his bosom again. Also he pulled it out of his bosom. Then behold, it returned like his other flesh. Therefore, if it shall come to pass, they will not believe you, nor hearken to the call of the first sign. Then they might believe the call of the latter sign. And if it shall come to pass, they will not believe the second sign also, nor hearken to your call. Then you will take from the water of the river, and pour it upon the dry ground. Thus the water which you will take out of the river will become blood upon the dry ground. Then Moshe said to Yehovah, O Adonai, I am not eloquent now, before now, nor since you have spoken to your servant, for I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. Therefore Yehovah asked him, Who has made Adam's mouth? Or who makes the dumb, or the deaf, or the seeing, or the blind? Am I not he who exists? Now therefore go, and I will be your mouth, and teach you what you will say. Then he said, Excuse me, Adonai. Send, I pray you, in your hand. You send. Therefore the anger of Yahuwah was kindled against Musha, and he asked, "Is not Aharon the Lehi your brother? I know that he can speak well. Also, behold, he comes forth to meet you, and when he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. Thus you will speak to him and put words in his mouth. So I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and I will teach you what to do. And he will be a spokesman to the people. Therefore he will be a mouth for you, and you will be a deity for him. Furthermore, you will take this rod in your hand. With it you will do signs.